there comes a moment in life when you look around and wonder, why did it all fall apart? You remember the relationships that faded, the dreams that slipped through your fingers, the prayers you whispered late into the night, hoping, pleading, sometimes even begging, but all you got in return was silence. No reply, no sign. And in those moments, it was easy to feel abandoned, like your voice had disappeared into the void. Maybe that's where you are right now, sitting with the weight of your own unanswered questions, nursing wounds no one can see, trying to find hope in a life that feels like it's been put on pause. But what if I told you you're not forgotten? That those very places where you've bled in silence are the places where God has been quietly working, preparing, and transforming? Yes, the grief was real. The losses you've carried, the betrayals that cut deep, the missed chances that haunt you, they were never ignored. Heaven didn't overlook your pain. In fact, God mourned with you. But He didn't stop there. He didn't allow those experiences to define you. Instead, He turned them into something holy, lessons. Quiet, hidden lessons that have shaped your resilience, deepened your humility, and given you a strength that cannot be bought or faked. The world may have looked at your brokenness and seen failure, but God looked at it and saw formation. He saw the clay being reshaped. What felt like the end of the road? It wasn't. It was simply a bend in the path. We're taught to run from pain, aren't we? To escape discomfort at all costs. But God doesn't waste pain. He weaves it. He takes every heartache, every disappointment, and He threads it into a larger story. A story that speaks of healing. A story that forms wisdom in you that no textbook could ever teach. What the enemy tried to use to break you, God is using to build you. That's why your life doesn't look the same. Because you're not the same. You've been rebuilt from the inside out. And the foundation is stronger now, made not of comfort or applause or control, but of depth, of character, of the kind of faith that storms cannot shake. And maybe the hardest part in all of this was the silence. The seasons when you prayed and got nothing in return. You searched for signs, you begged for a whisper, anything. But the heavens stayed quiet. It's easy to believe that silence means absence. But it doesn't. That silence wasn't a punishment. It was an invitation. It was God calling you deeper. Into a place where the noise of the world couldn't reach you. Into a space where the only voice that mattered was His. And He was there. Not loud. Not dramatic. But present, still, constant. He was stripping away every distraction, drawing you into intimacy that couldn't be formed in chaos. Do you know what silence taught you? It taught you rest. It taught you to lean, not on your plans or your knowledge or your performance, but on Him. It taught you that He is enough, that even when you couldn't see the way forward, you could still trust the One who holds the map. That's a lesson no comfort zone could ever give you. In silence, your ears grew sharper. Your spirit grew more sensitive. Your soul began to recognize His presence in the stillness. And sometimes, that's where the real work happens, not in the noise of victory, but in the quiet surrender of waiting. Now let's talk about strength, not the kind the world glorifies, but the kind God forms in the shadows. Strength doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it looks like staying when it would be easier to run. Sometimes it looks like choosing forgiveness when everything inside you screams for revenge. Sometimes it looks like believing again when everything in your life says there's no reason to. Real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't always move. Sometimes it's just a quiet decision to trust, to show up, to keep praying, to keep hoping, to keep your heart soft when bitterness would be the easier choice. God has not been interested in giving you surface change. He hasn't been working on a temporary fix. No, He's been forming something deeper. Endurance, faith, a strength that stands not because of circumstance, but because of conviction. A strength that doesn't collapse when the storm comes, because it's built on the rock, not on shifting sand. That's what He's been building in you. And maybe you didn't see it while it was happening. Maybe you thought you were losing. But in the stillness, in the quiet, in the waiting, He was winning. And so were you. You see, you wouldn't be the person you are today without the pain you never wanted. You wouldn't have this depth, this compassion, this understanding, if everything had gone according to your plan. And while God didn't cause your pain, He is the Redeemer of it. Every tear you shed, every ache you carried, He saw it. And He's been using it to write a story not of destruction, but of resurrection. You're still here. You're still breathing, still believing, even if it's just a whisper. And that whisper? That's strength. That's faith. That's victory. So if you're wondering today whether God sees you, He does. If you're questioning whether your story still matters, it does. And if you're asking whether this silence, this suffering, this stillness has any meaning, it does. You are not being buried, you're being planted. And in time, in His time, you'll see the fruit of what felt like failure. You'll hold the blessing born out of your waiting. And you'll look back and realize it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was love. There's a reason some prayers don't get answered the way we want. And it's not because God's deaf to your pain or indifferent to your desires. It's because He's protecting you from things you don't yet see. You prayed for that relationship to work, and it didn't. You asked for that job, and the door never opened. You pleaded for healing, and it didn't come on your timeline. It's hard. It hurts. It can make you question your faith. But what if I told you that behind every no, God was saying, not this, because I have something better. Not now, because you're not ready. Not yet, because I'm still writing your story. You weren't being denied. You were being redirected. See, there are things you begged for that would have broken you had you received them too early. You thought you were ready, but God saw the whole picture. He saw how that yes would have delayed your growth, corrupted your peace, or tied you to something far smaller than what He had planned. Sometimes the greatest mercy God shows us is in the closed doors, because He's not just after your momentary happiness. He's after your eternal wholeness. And so, when He doesn't give you what you want, it's not a betrayal of love. It's the purest expression of it. I know, it's frustrating to feel like your faith was met with silence. You did your part. You obeyed. You trusted. You waited. And yet, life didn't bend the way you hoped it would. But here's the truth. God never promised us control. He promised us companionship. He promised that even when the path doesn't make sense, He will walk it with us. So what if the unanswered prayers are actually the evidence that He loves you enough not to let your feelings steer your future? What if He's been building a future for you that you couldn't have asked for, because you didn't even know it was possible? There's a freedom that comes when you realize your identity isn't in what you've achieved, or what you've lost, or what others say about you, but in what He's spoken over you. That truth silences every lie the enemy has tried to use to keep you small, insecure, and ashamed. You are not your past. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are not your lack. You are His. That's your identity. That's the anchor. And once you start living from that truth, not for it, everything changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing failure. You live free because you know who you are and whose you are. But even when you know all this, even when you've seen His goodness and felt His presence, there will still be moments of pain. There will still be heartbreaks you can't explain. And in those moments, the question will rise, why did God let this happen? And that's when you have to hold onto the truth that some healing only happens through brokenness. Not the kind that destroys you, but the kind that reveals what was always holding you together. That's when you learn that the pain was not to ruin you. It was to reveal you. And finally, if there's one truth that ties all of this together, it's this: God wastes nothing. Not your heartbreak, not your waiting, not your silence, not your detours. Nothing. Every piece of your story, even the parts you wish you could erase, are being rewritten by grace. The tears, the confusion, the long nights of wrestling, they are not forgotten. They are the ink God is using to craft a testimony that will speak of His goodness, His power, and His intimate care for your life. One day, you'll look back and see that what you thought was the end was really the beginning. That what broke you also birthed something inside you: depth, compassion, clarity, purpose. You'll realize that even when you didn't feel it, God was there. Even when you didn't understand, He was working. And when everything felt lost, He was holding it all together. He still is. So take heart. If your life feels quiet, if your soul feels worn, if your prayers feel unanswered, you are not alone. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. And the God who started this good work in you, He will finish it.